Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. It's your host, Matt Zahab, and we are buzzing as always. I was just checking my mic to make sure I'm on the right setting. I was on a meeting earlier this week, had the wrong setting on, had this weird old echoey thing going on, but we are back. We are buzzing. Super pumped to have today's guest on the show, the one and only Raj Brahmbhatt, the CEO of Zeebu, a trailblazing company revolutionizing the telecom sector with cutting-edge blockchain solutions. He's been at the forefront of innovation in the Web3 and DeFi industry and began his career in addressing key challenges in the telecom industry, transitioning from Web2 to Web3, bringing blockchain tech to markets heavily reliant on legacy systems. Huge passion for entrepreneurship and deep understanding of blockchain's potential. Raj has dedicated himself to transforming how businesses and individuals interact with telecom solutions while spearheading Zeebu's mission to shape the future of connectivity. We have not yet had a guest come on the show. I mean, I think you're one of the only companies in this space really moving and grooving in the telecom space, which is a multi-billion, if not trillion-dollar industry, which I cannot wait to get into. Raj, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely evening?
I'm doing incredible and happy to be here. Also to mention, I'm also the co-founder and chairman of Valueit, which is a asset tokenization, RWA-focused company. So would love to talk about that as well a little bit later on.
I love it. How crazy this market been, dude? I mean, you and I are recording on the 23rd. This epi's going to air a week later. But last night, I'm getting ready to go to bed and I was just hanging out with the lady for a little bit. Took one more little rip on Twitter just to see what's going on. And the founder of Vine, launched a meme coin. We had Trump, we have Melania, we have the founder of Vine come back after a 10-year hiatus. And we had the digital sort of revitalization of John McAfee. Like, how friggin' crazy is this market right now?
Insane. I mean, look, with the Trump token itself, right? I was not expecting that. No one was expecting that. It was an absolutely insane play 3 days before inauguration that Trump could have done. And Melania absolutely doubled down on that play as well. I think symbolically speaking, just the action of Trump launching his own token speaks to the fact that the US will become the next leader within Web3 and digital assets because, when the president himself is so willing to adopt the technology, whatever the means used, it speaks to the fact that the regulatory bodies and the native framework of the country will be a lot more willing of kind of incentivizing innovation within the space.
100% agree. I mean, even just last year even before Trump was penciled in, even when he was speaking about, a potential Bitcoin reserve or I'm going to make Bitcoin hit 150K, hit new all-time highs, blah, blah, blah. I still would have thought, okay, I mean, Dubai has such a leg up. Singapore has such a leg up. There's these countries, heck, Puerto Rico has tons of people there. Liechtenstein, there's so many places and cities around the world that really have a crazy head start in the blockchain race if they want to be that blockchain capital of the world. But I mean, you can't really bet against the USA, if Trump really wants to make this happen and just sort of deregulates everything and turns it into the wild, wild west, things to get pretty spicy. The one thing, Raj, that concerns me a little is there's rumors about sort of wiping out, taxes and cap gains and everything on crypto. I think that would just decimate the market because all these folks who got in, we'll call it even before 2020, who have big bags, why wouldn't they liquidate a fair chunk of their portfolio? And what's that going to do to the market? Everything's going to take an absolute shit,
In the short term, yes, I absolutely agree. But if you think about it, I always like to give the example of the guy who bought pizza with 10,000 Bitcoins. Yeah. If you think about it, if he hadn't, consumed services against those 10,000 Bitcoins way back in the day, even though it was just 2 pizzas, 10,000 people wouldn't have the opportunity to own 1 Bitcoin each today.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So in a way, if Bitcoin is really going to become the world's store of value currency or digital asset, I think from time to time, market liquidations are important to distribute supply amongst people, right? Yeah. Especially when you have holders that have been holding since 2018, 17, 2020 even, right? So no, I don't fear it so much because I'm a long-term Bitcoin believer, not necessarily cycle to cycle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of just my opinion. I could be wrong.
No, it's a great outlook to have on that. Let's jump into Zeebu here. Also, I love the name. Obviously, I'm a little biased. My last name's Zahab, however you like to call it. So anytime there's a Z or a Z in the name, gets me going. I love that. I love the name Zeebu. But super cool opportunity for me, especially just because we've never had, I mean, we're 400 episodes in, no one's ever been on to talk about telecom. It's a massive, massive industry. I mean, you use this thing every single day, all day long. They're so powerful. What made you, I know you had Web2 experience in the telecom space. Maybe that's a good place to start. Talk about the Web2 experience, probably all of the, problems and pain points that you saw. And then fast forward that, segue into Zeebu and talk about, give us the elevator pitch, the TLDR, and the solutions that you guys are providing to the telecom space. And then we'll get into the fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe I'll give like a quick overview of my journey as an individual into Web3 and how I ended up branching out into the two ventures that are Web3 native, right? So to get started, I initially started my career working in my own family office. My main goal was to build out our own liquid equities and crypto portfolio, which was pretty much only managed by me. And while I was doing that, I started slowly looking at some of the venture capital and private equity deals that we were allocating towards as well. And along the way, of course, I had exposure to my father's company even before I started my career within, investing. So while I had exposure to my father's company, which is wholesale voice, SMS, and data termination around the world, effectively the main service that they provide is to enable people that are traveling across the world, consuming roaming services on another cell phone service provider's infrastructure to be able to reconcile the consumption, right? So let's say you're an AT&T user traveling to Dubai.
Interesting.
Let's say you're an AT&T user, right? Traveling to Dubai, and you are utilizing now Etisalat's infrastructure for voice, SMS, data. AT&T and Etisalat aren't interconnected directly. So the payment there for your consumption of the network is reconciled by two wholesale service providers, or three or one. It could be many numbers because they're effectively traders of voice, SMS, and data. The wholesale service providers reconcile the consumption of voice, SMS, and data globally on behalf of AT&T, Etisalat, STC, etc. So that's what our family company does, which is Bakeguy Group. And while I was kind of working with some of the guys there and got to know the industry a bit, I found one key inefficiency, which was payments, right? So now think about it like this. If you're a commodities trader on the CME, right, and you try to purchase gold, copper, or even a security, and you couldn't pay for it for like 5, 6, 7 days, the trade wouldn't settle. That would effectively slow down your business, right? Because now your working capital is getting stuck in these cycles of 5, 6, 7 days. So this was a massive inefficiency, especially in a market of wholesale where margins are relatively lower. You need to be able to produce more churn in order to produce more revenues. And if your working capital is getting stuck for 5, 6, 7 days doing cross-border transactions, then you're not maximizing your potential revenues. And your business development efforts versus conversion is really, really off. So at that point in time, we decided, why not start doing transactions with USDT or, any other stable coin? And what we figured out was, number one, most of these guys are Web2 native. They don't know how to operate, blockchain wallets. Even if they do figure that out, what are they going to do? Give $5-6 million in working capital to a finance guy with no restrictions on it on a MetaMask wallet, right?
Maybe one multi-sig. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah.
The other problem becomes also is invoice reconciliation and potential fraud. Now, what could happen is, for example, if I receive a invoice in my email from Matt Zaha for, $500,000 as a counterparty that I was transacting with, I sent $500,000 in USDT, but turns out it was just a spoofed email. Matt never actually sent me that invoice, and it was someone else. Now that USDT is gone, very, very hard to recover. I know Tether and Tron have been working on it as of recently, but still, it would be very, very difficult to recover the funds by the time, the counterparty that has liquidated. So that was another thing that we figured out. The other problem was being able to reconcile invoicing directly with payments. So what we did was we identified all of these problem statements that were happening and hindering the use of blockchain technology for payments for these telcos. And we created solutions for these problem statements into one all-encompassing platform, which is the Zeebu Payment Settlements platform. and through which we onboarded 138 institutional clients who are actively transacting today and have done over $5.3 billion in transactions in the past 19 or so months.
That is absolutely insane. And what about geos? Like, what geos are you targeting right away? Is everyone interested in this? Like, walking through some of the conversations with these big execs when you're like, hey, one of your biggest pain points, you guys are in the wholesale business, the remittance of payments, that sort of 3 to 5 day window, which kills businesses that you talked about. It's like a grocery store, right? Like the famous, everyone talks about the grocery store story. They don't make money until the last 5 days of the month, right? It's like, that's probably the same for the telecoms community or any business that's in the wholesale space. What are these big execs saying? Are they like, this sounds too good to be true? It's too dangerous. Crypto's a scam. Like, walk me through those combos.
It's a mix. I mean, luckily, because of our relationships, the first 8 clients were super easy. And we worked with them to kind of create a network effect of onboarding because if I'm using the Zeebu platform and I want to pay Matt, I can only pay him if he's on the Zeebu platform as well, right? So it sort of created a network effect, and hence we were able to onboard all these clients. And usually when you're transacting with a counterparty that you've been working with for like 10, 15 years, there's kind of an inherent trust and kind of, taking the recommendation and using it in order to do most things. So that kind of, that effectively helped us onboard our larger chunk of the users, the initial set of users that we onboarded for the pilot program.
Gotcha.
So we're serving right now African countries, European, Southeast Asian, and some Middle Eastern, specifically UAE. After this, now that Trump's in office, we will be focusing on the Americas a bit more. We do have some clients in Latin America as well.
That's amazing. Wow. That's wild. And again, just to go over the pitch, like in the show notes, one of the lines that I love is from 10 days to 10 seconds, how blockchain can revolutionize the B2B settlement times. Obviously you're starting off in telecom, but like this, you guys could realistically, I mean, you start off in telecom because the family biz, you have, authority, you have trust there, you have a network, you have contacts, you have clients, right? You had a previous leg up, but like you guys could realistically attack anyone, no?
Yeah, correct. So we're currently looking at the royalties market wherein royalties are automated to be paid on a monthly basis, right? Balances may be different. For example, in music, if I'm Universal Studios and I own, the rights to Taylor Swift's album and Spotify is using that album and extending the consumption to end users, Spotify now owes me a certain amount of money on each play on a monthly basis. Now, the money comes in different currencies from different parts of the world, takes, a ton of delay. What we're working on is to create a integrated payment solution with its unified currency, which is ZBU. So all of the remittance would happen in ZBU, and then it would settle in stablecoin for Universal. So similar to that, we're working with different royalties companies, and we're also working with different commodities and shipping companies as well.
Super, super, super interesting. Raj, on a roll here. We're going to take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor, the show, Prime XP team. When we get back, we're going to keep buzzing on Zeebu, and we are going to get into your venture portfolio as well. Until then, huge shout out to Prime XPT, longtime sponsors and longtime friends of Crypto News podcast. We love these guys as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XPT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50 to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. And now back to the show with Raj. One point I'd love to get into is just like, obviously we've talked a lot about payments, but other overarching areas of DeFi for B2B transactions, because payments is one, but you've been on fire. You've been on the podcast circuit. You've posted some great content, you and your team, and you guys have, I don't want to say hot takes, but some really good takes on the potential for DeFi on the B2B settlement sector as a whole. And I'd love for you to just go on a riff and tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, a lot of businesses today rely on loans, more short-term loans, and being able to factor future receivables, right? It's a relatively efficient market, but it's very tedious and it's not necessarily reliable when you're a business, right? So another thing that I think what might be something that will be up and coming soon is levering your assets as a company in order to produce more working capital. So let's say I'm a commodities company and I have a lot of gold or copper, etc., on my balance sheet. I can tokenize it, borrow dollar against it because this is pretty, stable, reliable collateral, and use that dollar as working capital. So creating effectively a Aave for RWAs and using that platform in order to produce yield, using your native assets on your balance sheet and also producing more working capital. I think that's kind of the next big DeFi implementation when it comes to, payments for businesses and more things they can do with their assets and money using blockchain technology.
Super interesting. And at last point on the Zeebu, and then we'll get into value it. But something that I didn't know about again until doing research for the show, that the telecom industry is quite horny for the whole sustainability, stamp of approval, if you will. I don't really know the right word to use, but obviously with something like telecoms where you're literally hitting every industry in every country in the world, you're probably using up a lot of energy, you're probably damaging the environment in some capacity, and blockchain tech just provides a much more seamless and easy and environmentally free solution. And I'd love if you could jump into that for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as of now, there haven't been that many solutions, right? Because especially with the new 5G network implementation, there's been a lot more infrastructure that has got into place through telcos around the world. So two things, there's obvious pollution when you're setting up this infrastructure. There's higher consumption of energy itself. So telcos, I think, are working with MVNOs, so mobile virtual network operators that can place smaller devices that consume less space, less energy, and less infrastructure to extend services in different geographical locations in an effort to become more sustainably friendly. And I think a lot of the tier one operators are also investing in more clean energy programs around the world as well. At Zeebu, what we are currently working on through our research and development lab is to create a reconciliation blockchain for telcos around the world, right? Right now, the way it works is all of the telcos are connected to landing stations. They're called international landing stations. They effectively connect all the submarine cables into this massive piece of infrastructure and machinery, right? And they all have their own soft switches, which are produced by Sensei. Now, the problem is all of the billing and switching is done on their own native software, and it's not necessarily, the information isn't interoperable. So they still have to do manual reconciliations with pretty massive teams.
Yeah.
So what we are doing is we're building a blockchain that has a consensus mechanism in order to record all voice termination, SMS termination, and also data consumption on chain across multiple telco infrastructures.
Wow, that's wild. That I never forget, Raj, the first time I saw that map. You must have, of course, you've seen the map. I mean, you're in the space, I'm not, but you must have seen that map with all of the submarine cables. Like, that is fucking wild. Pardon my French, but it's like, also, how the hell do they even make those cables so long? Like, how do they connect them from continent to continent? Like, when I saw that, I was like, this just, to me, that doesn't make sense. Like, you know what I mean? If you're like, hey, you have 10 years to make this happen, I'm like, where do I even start?
So
like that is one of the most wild things I've ever seen.
I know. So I the first time I saw that map, I think I was probably like 7 or 8 years old. And it was this massive map in my father's office wall, right? And I asked him, I was like, what's going on here? Right. If I was a little bit older, I would have been like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? But I asked him, what's going on here? And he said, oh, those are different cables that are connected to the international landing stations in multiple countries. The cables are put down at the ocean floor using submarines. And a lot of companies, have to work together in order to make this happen. Right. There's the companies that maintain the fiber cables. There's the companies that operate the submarines to deploy them effectively. There's engineering teams that connect them to landing stations around the world. And most importantly, there's the consumers, right? So the wholesale service providers and tier one operators that probably prepaid for access to this infrastructure as well. So it took a long time to build it. And, till date, it's sustainable. It stays strong with very little maintenance work, and it's connecting the world.
It's absolutely insane. Let's jump into Valuit here. Great logo as well, super clean. You guys do a little bit of everything to my knowledge here at Valuit. It is the tagline, owning your own slice in the global markets. Think of it as Web3 investment banking. And to my knowledge, it's mostly RWA based, really anything that can be tokenized. Is this exactly what it sounds like? You're literally just taking huge, massive assets around the world, chopping them up, putting them into nice little bite-sized pieces and offering it to the average Joe and Josephine. Am I on the right page here?
You're pretty close. Seems like we're doing our marketing right. So I'm the co-founder and chairman there. And then I have two other co-founders along with me. The project has been in stealth for the past about, 3 years-ish. The whole purpose that we built this project was to, number one, tokenize assets that are agnostic to the economic curve, right? So real estate, commodities, music master rights, everything that is yield generating and doesn't necessarily have massive effects on its value, whether you're looking at an inflationary economy or a recessive economy. So right now it's only private equity firms and holding companies that are native to these industries that actually hold these assets and are able to benefit from the stability and yield that they provide. And what we wanted to do was make it possible for, I guess, the everyday Joe to get access to them as well, as part of, his, her, whoever's portfolio strategy. So what we have created now is a primary marketplace and tokenization framework wherein any security that is usually a yield generating asset and agnostic to the curve can be tokenized, fractionalized, and the owners of it can use the platform as a share capital management system, dividend distribution system. They're able to effectively use it as almost a prospectus builder, upload their financials, upload the title deed, etc., whatever the asset is, whether it's real estate, commodities, music. And while they're using it as a share capital management system, they've already implemented their asset onto the platform. So the only thing that they need to do now is take those tokenized securities and take them to the primary marketplace if they ever want to bring on board new partners that they either already know or are looking for new partners that are a part of our syndicate of lenders and purchasers on the platform. So, liquidity providers. So that's kind of our primary marketplace and tokenization framework, kind of the short version. There's a lot more features, but it would take a long time to cover them. In our phase 2, now that we have deployed this and successfully onboarded a few assets onto the platform, in phase 2, we're launching our own decentralized exchange in order to trade RWAs. This is where, retail can really get access to these securities. And, we're not like some of the other companies you've seen in the market who are just mirroring prices and creating, I guess, just made up derivatives for people to have economic benefits short term on the assets. We're actually distributing, compliant securities that you own a piece of on the platform. So on the DEX, what we're effectively doing is we're enabling people to directly interact with the order books and the AMM pools in order to purchase these securities by having on-chain ID, right? So Matt Zob would have done KYC on, Valuit's on-chain ID protocol. And since you are, I believe, Canadian or American? Canadian, right? Since you're Canadian, you would effectively have to comply to Canadian law, even if you were purchasing, European assets, Middle Eastern assets, African assets, right? And it would be an entirely automated compliance structure because we use the ERC 3643 standard for the tokens. So the tokens are hard-coded with these compliance standards when the asset owner deploys the security on chain. And then additionally, while these tokens provide you yield, what you're also able to do is you're able to borrow against them. So let's say you have an investment portfolio of these securities, but you need some quick cash and you don't want to have to sell them because you truly believe they're going to increase in value over time. What you can do is, let's say you have real estate token A, right? You can take real estate token A and go to our lending and borrowing platform. Let's assume that the token produces, or the asset produces 7% yield annualized. You'll most likely be able to borrow from the lending and borrowing platform for 8 or 9%. So now you're arbitraging the inherent yield that the asset produces and the borrowing rate, maybe paying 1% to 2% for a loan every year.
Wow, that's wild. Raj, you're on a roll here, man. We are getting a little tight for time. Before we let you go, any news, any updates popping off, value with Zeebu over the next couple weeks, months? What do you got for us before we let you go today?
Absolutely. So at Zeebu, we are doing one of our biggest airdrops that has been done till date. It's not, we're not just taking some tokens from our treasury and airdropping it to everyone and creating a ridiculous amount of market pressure. What we like to call it is it's proof of participation, right? Based, wherein the only way you can get a part of the airdrop is if you are contributing in some way to the ecosystem, and it kind of leads to monetary addition to the ecosystem, whether it's directly money, time, effort, code, doesn't matter. So we're distributing 60 million ZBU tokens as part of the campaign by the end of next quarter or beginning of the second quarter. And as part of this, the whole point of doing this is to augment our Web3 integration for Zeebu, because we've kind of been Web2 focused with the whole telco thing. And now we want to bring on more Web3 community on board to develop around the Zeebu protocol, most importantly, wherein we have aggregated liquidity in BTC, Ethereum, and USDC paired with ZBU in order to enable the transactions that the telco companies on the Zeebu payment settlements platform do. So we're inviting people to come stake those different assets in order to produce a yield and earn a piece of the fees that the consumers of the platform pay to the end network.
Super cool. I love it. Raj, what an episode. Really appreciate you coming on, my man. Before you go, can you please let our listeners know where they can find you personally and, of course, Zeebu and Value It online and on socials?
Absolutely. So if you want to just see me on your timeline, 2 to 3 times a week on X, just go follow me on X. It's at Real Raj Brahmbhatt. It's RajBrahmbhatt. I know it's a little bit difficult. And then for Zeebu, just go to www.zeebu.com. And most importantly, go to Zeebu official on X as well.
Love it. Folks, what an episode with Raj Brahmbhatt, CEO of Zeebu and Value It. He was bringing the noise today, tons of alpha. We discussed how blockchain can revolutionize B2B settlement times, reshape financial ops in the telecom industry, a little bit of investing for the average Joe and Josephine, RWAs, a little bit of meme coin mania, and how USA has a chance to become the leader of Web3. Huge shout out to Raj and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything, as always. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.